The champagne flute shattered against the wall, missing Lethabo's head by inches. She didn't flinch. After 3 years with Choi Jisoo, she'd learned to read the trajectory of his anger before his hand even moved. "You think you can embarrass me like that?" Choi Jisoo's voice was ice wrapped in silk as he cornered her in their Gangnam apartment. "Laughing with that waiter, making me look like a fool in front of my colleagues?" Lethabo's ribs still ached from yesterday. Her wrist throbbed where he'd twisted it last week. Tomorrow, she was supposed to walk down the aisle and promise forever to this man. The wedding dress hung in the closet like a white ghost, mocking her. "I wasn't," she started, but his hand was already in her hair, yanking her head back. "Don't lie to me." His breath was hot against her face, reeking of soju. "You know what happens when you lie?" She knew. God, she knew. The concealer in her makeup bag could tell stories. So could the long sleeves she wore, even in Seoul's brutal summers. So could the fake smiles she'd perfected for his family, his friends, anyone who might ask questions. But tonight, something was different. Maybe it was the 3rd bottle of wine she'd drunk while he was out. Maybe it was the realization that this would be her life forever after tomorrow. Maybe it was just that she'd finally run out of the ability to care whether she lived or died. When Choi Jisoo's phone rang and he released her to answer it, stepping into the bedroom, Lethabo looked at the apartment door. She'd looked at it 1,000 times before, imagined running. But where would she go? She was a Black woman, a South African, alone in Seoul. No family, no real friends. Choi Jisoo had systematically isolated her from everyone. She had no money of her own, no passport. He kept it locked in his safe. His voice drifted from the bedroom, angry, talking about some business deal gone wrong. She had maybe 3 minutes. Lethabo grabbed her phone, left everything else, didn't even stop for shoes. The door seemed to open in slow motion, and then she was in the hallway, then the stairs. She couldn't risk the elevator, then the street. The pavement was cold and wet against her bare feet. She ran. Seoul at midnight was a blur of neon and noise. She didn't know where she was going, just away. Her lungs burned, her feet left bloody prints on the sidewalk. Behind her, she heard shouting. Whether it was Choi Jisoo or just her imagination, she didn't stop to find out. She turned into an alley, then another, until she was completely lost in the labyrinth of Gangnam's backstreets. Her phone buzzed. Choi Jisoo. She threw it into a dumpster and kept running. That's when she stumbled into the building. Literally stumbled. Her foot caught on the threshold of what looked like an expensive office building, and she fell forward into a lobby that was all black marble and gold accents. A security guard started toward her, but a voice stopped him. "Leave her." Lethabo looked up. The man standing in the doorway of what appeared to be a conference room was tall, sharp-featured, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Choi Jisoo's car. His eyes were dark and unreadable as they swept over her, barefoot, bleeding, wearing yesterday's clothes. "You look like you're running from something," he said. His Korean was crisp, educated, but there was something dangerous underneath it. Or someone. Lethabo's voice cracked. "I just need to hide, please, just for a few minutes." The man studied her for a long moment, then stepped aside. "Come in. We're just finishing up some paperwork." She didn't question it. She was too tired, too scared, too drunk on wine and adrenaline. She walked into the conference room, where several men in suits sat around a table covered in documents. They looked at her with varying degrees of surprise and suspicion, but none of them spoke. "Sit," the dangerous man said, gesturing to a chair. "You want water? Something stronger?" "Stronger," Lethabo said. "Definitely stronger." He poured her 3 fingers of whiskey from a crystal decanter. She downed it in one gulp. He raised an eyebrow, but poured her another. "What's your name?" "Lethabo." "Kwon Tae-young." He didn't offer his hand. "And you're running from my fiancé, ex-fiancé, as of about 10 minutes ago." "Ah." Kwon Tae-young sat down across from her. "Let me guess. He hits you, controls you, tells you it's because he loves you? Lethabo's hand tightened around the glass. How did you... I know men like that. His voice was flat, emotionless. They're cowards. They pick women they think won't fight back. One of the other men at the table cleared his throat. Taeyang-si, we really need to finish. It can wait. Kwon Tae-young's eyes never left Lethabo's face. So, what's your plan? You can't go back. He'll kill you eventually. They always do. I don't have a plan. The whiskey was making everything fuzzy at the edges. I don't have anything. No money, no passport, no place to go. Everyone has something to offer. Kwon Tae-young leaned back in his chair. The question is, what are you willing to trade for safety? Through the whiskey haze, alarm bells started ringing in Lethabo's head. What do you mean? I mean, I can protect you, give you a place to stay, make sure your ex never touches you again. He paused. For a price. I told you I don't have any money. I don't want your money. Kwon Tae-young slid a document across the table. I want your signature. Lethabo looked at the papers. The Korean characters swam in front of her eyes. What is this? A contract. Sign it, and you're under my protection. No one will touch you. You'll have everything you need. And what do you get? A wife. The word hung in the air like a bomb. Lethabo laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. You're joking. I don't joke about business. Kwon Tae-young's expression didn't change. I need a wife for certain business purposes. You need protection. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. You're insane. Possibly. He pushed the papers closer. But I'm also your only option right now, unless you want to go back out there and hope your ex doesn't find you first. Lethabo looked at the door, looked at the papers, looked at Kwon Tae-young's impassive face. The whiskey was singing in her blood, and she was so tired of being afraid. What did she have to lose? She was already in hell. Maybe this was just a different kind of hell. Maybe it was better. She picked up the pen. Where do I sign? Kwon Tae-young pointed. She signed and signed again and again. She didn't read any of it, didn't care. Each signature felt like crossing a bridge and burning it behind her. When she was done, Kwon Tae-young gathered the papers with an expression that might have been satisfaction. Congratulations, Mrs. Kwon. You're now the wife of Seoul's most dangerous man. What? The room tilted. Lethabo gripped the table. What did you say? You should probably stop drinking. Kwon Tae-young stood. You're going to want to remember this conversation tomorrow. But Lethabo didn't remember tomorrow. She didn't remember Kwon Tae-young's driver taking her to a penthouse in Hanamdong. She didn't remember being helped into a bed that felt like a cloud. She didn't remember anything until she woke up in unfamiliar silk sheets in an unfamiliar room with sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Han River. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Then she sat up, and every muscle in her body screamed. Her feet were bandaged. She was wearing clothes she didn't recognize, expensive pajamas that fit perfectly. And on her left hand, next to Choi Ji-soo's engagement ring, was another ring, a wedding band, platinum and diamonds. The door opened. Kwon Tae-young walked in carrying a tray with coffee and what looked like breakfast. He was dressed casually now, black pants, white shirt, sleeves rolled up. He looked younger in daylight, maybe early 30s, and even more dangerous. You're awake, he said. Good, we have a lot to discuss. Lethabo stared at him. What happened? Where am I? You're in my home. Our home, technically, since as of last night, you're legally my wife. He set the tray on the bedside table. You signed a marriage contract. It's binding under Korean law. Congratulations. The room spun. That's not possible. You can't just... I can, and I did. Kwon Tae-young sat in a chair by the window. Don't worry, I don't expect anything romantic. This is a business arrangement. You stay here, you follow my rules, and I keep you safe. Simple. This is kidnapping. This is rescue. His voice hardened. You came to me. You signed the papers of your own free will. Drunk, yes, but free will nonetheless. And now you're protected. Your ex-fiancé can't touch you. No one can. Lethabo pulled at the wedding ring. It wouldn't budge. Who are you? I told you, Kwon Tae-young. That doesn't mean anything to me. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It will. Eat your breakfast. Someone will be here in an hour to take your measurements. Measurements? For what? Clothes. You'll need an entirely new wardrobe. Can't have my wife looking like she dressed herself from a discount store. I'm not your wife. The papers say otherwise. Kwon Tae-young stood. Get used to it, Lethabo. Your old life is over. This is your new reality. The sooner you accept it, the easier it will be. He walked out, closing the door behind him. Lethabo heard the lock click. She was in a gilded cage. She'd escaped one prison, only to walk willingly into another. She threw the breakfast tray against the wall and screamed. Over the following days, Lethabo learned exactly what being Mrs. Kwon meant. Kwon Tae-young wasn't just wealthy. He was powerful in ways that made Choi Jae-soo look like a street thug. He owned half of Gangnam, had politicians and police on his payroll, and ran an empire that existed in the shadows of Seoul's glittering surface. People feared him. People obeyed him without question. And now, she belonged to him. You need to learn how to walk properly, the woman said, circling Lethabo like a predator. Her name was Madame Go, and she'd been hired to turn Lethabo into a proper society wife. You slouch, you drag your feet. Unacceptable. Lethabo was wearing heels that felt like torture devices, a dress that cost more than she'd made in a year back in Johannesburg, and had endured 3 hours of etiquette lessons. She was ready to commit murder. I know how to walk. You know how to walk like a common girl. Madame Go's voice was acidic. Now you're Mrs. Kwon. You represent one of Seoul's most powerful families. You will walk, talk, and behave accordingly. Or what? Or you embarrass your husband. And trust me, you don't want to do that. But embarrassing Kwon Tae-young was exactly what Lethabo wanted to do. She wanted to make him regret this insane arrangement. She started small, wearing the wrong clothes to breakfast, using the wrong chopsticks, deliberately mangling Korean pronunciation. Kwon Tae-young barely reacted. He'd simply look at her with those dark, unreadable eyes and say, "Try again." It was infuriating. What was more infuriating was that she couldn't leave. The penthouse was on the top floor, 40 stories up. Security was everywhere. Her passport was in Kwon Tae-young's safe, just like it had been in Choi Jae-soo's. She'd traded one cage for another, except this cage had better furniture. 3 weeks into her captivity, Kwon Tae-young summoned her to his office. "Tomorrow night, there's a gala," he said, without looking up from his laptop. "I'd rather eat glass." "That can be arranged, but it would be a waste of Madame Go's efforts." He finally looked at her. "You'll behave, you'll smile, you'll play the role of devoted wife. Understood? And if I don't? Then I'll make sure everyone knows your ex-fiancé's new address." Lethabo's blood went cold. "You wouldn't? Try me." Kwon Tae-young's voice was soft, deadly. "I don't make threats, Lethabo. I make promises. You're my wife now. That means you're useful to me. But if you become more trouble than you're worth, I have no problem cutting you loose. And we both know what happens then." She wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, but he was right. Without his protection, she had nothing, nowhere to go, no one to turn to. Choi Jae-soo would find her within days. "Fine," she said through clenched teeth. "I'll go to your stupid gala." Good. He returned to his laptop. Wear the black dress, the one with the diamonds. The gala was a nightmare of false smiles and fake laughter. Lethabo stood beside Kwon Tae-young in a dress that probably cost more than a car, with jewelry that felt like chains, while he smoothed with politicians and businessmen who all looked at her like she was an exotic pet. "Your wife is beautiful," one man said in Korean, as if Lethabo couldn't understand. "Where did you find her?" "She found me," Kwon Tae-young replied smoothly. His hand rested on the small of Lethabo's back, possessive. "Lucky me." Lethabo smiled and said nothing. Madame Go had drilled into her that society wives were seen, not heard. It made her want to scream. Halfway through the evening, while Kwon Tae-young was deep in conversation with a man who was obviously a politician, Lithabo excused herself to the bathroom. She just needed 5 minutes away from the oppressive crowd, the judging eyes, the weight of the ring on her finger. She was reapplying lipstick when another woman walked in. Young, beautiful Korean, and wearing a dress that cost more than Lithabo's entire outfit. "So you're the one," the woman said in perfect English. "Kwon Tae-young's mysterious new wife." Lithabo met her eyes in the mirror. "And you are concerned?" The woman moved closer. "He's not what you think. Kwon Tae-young is dangerous, ruthless. He destroys everything he touches." "Thanks for the warning." Lithabo turned to leave. The woman grabbed her arm. "I'm serious. Get out while you still can. Divorce him. Leave Seoul. Just run." "You think I haven't tried?" Lithabo yanked her arm free. "I'm trapped here, just like everyone else in his world." "Then you're already dead." The woman's voice dropped to a whisper. "He doesn't let people leave. Once you're in forever, until he decides he's done with you." Lithabo walked out without responding, but the words echoed in her head for the rest of the night. When they finally returned to the penthouse, she was exhausted and terrified and angry all at once. "You did well tonight," Kwon Tae-young said as they entered the living room. He poured himself a drink. "Better than I expected." "I'm not a performing monkey." "No, you're my wife. There's a difference." He looked at her, really looked at her. "That woman in the bathroom, what did she say to you?" Of course he knew. He probably had people watching her every move. "She told me to run, said you're dangerous." "She's not wrong." Kwon Tae-young downed his drink. "I am dangerous, Lithabo. I've done things that would give you nightmares. But I keep my word. You're safe here. Safer than you've ever been." "Safe?" Lithabo laughed bitterly. "I'm a prisoner." "You're protected." He moved closer, and she fought the urge to step back. "There's a difference. You just haven't figured it out yet." "What do you want from me?" The question burst out of her. "Really? Why did you marry me? It can't just be for appearances." Kwon Tae-young was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. "Because I saw something in you that night. Fire, strength, even bleeding and broken. You fought. That's rare." "So you collected me like a trophy?" "No." His eyes held hers like a partner. Before she could respond, he walked away, leaving Lithabo alone with her confusion. The nightmares started a month in. Lithabo would wake up screaming, trapped in dreams where Choi Jisoo's hands were around her throat, where she was back in that Gangnam apartment where she couldn't breathe, couldn't run, couldn't escape. She'd learned to muffle her screams with a pillow so the staff wouldn't hear. But Kwon Tae-young heard. The third time it happened, her door opened, and he was there, dressed in pajama pants and nothing else. For a moment, Lithabo was too disoriented to speak. She'd never seen him like this, unguarded, human. "Another nightmare," he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded, pulling her knees to her chest. "I'm fine, you can go." Instead, he sat on the edge of the bed. "What do you dream about?" "None of your business." "Lithabo," his voice was surprisingly gentle. "Talk to me." Maybe it was the darkness, maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe it was just that she was so tired of carrying everything alone. The words came tumbling out, about Choi Jisoo, about the 3 years of abuse, about how he'd isolated her, controlled her, broken her piece by piece until she didn't recognize herself anymore. Kwon Tae-young listened without interrupting. When she finally finished, her face wet with tears. She hadn't meant to cry. He stood and left the room. Lithabo thought that was it. She'd shown weakness and now he'd despise her. But he came back a minute later with a bottle of water and a warm cloth. He handed her the water and without asking permission, gently wiped her face. "You're not broken," he said quietly. You survived. That makes you stronger than most people I know. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing it anyway. He set the cloth aside. You walked into my office bleeding and barefoot, and you didn't beg, you didn't cry. You negotiated. That's strength. Lethabo looked at him, really looked at him. In the dim light, he looked younger, more vulnerable, human. Who are you, Kwon Tae-young? Someone who understands more than you think. He stood. Try to sleep. I'm right down the hall if you need me. After that night, things shifted between them. The hostility remained, but something else crept in. A grudging respect, a strange intimacy born from shared darkness. Kwon Tae-young started eating breakfast with her, asking about her day, treating her less like a possession and more like a person. But he also started pushing her in new ways. You're learning self-defense, he announced one morning. Excuse me? Starting today, 1 hour every morning. He sipped his coffee. You need to know how to protect yourself. From what? I'm locked in a fortress. From me? His eyes were serious. I want you to be able to fight back if you need to. Never be helpless again. The trainer was a woman named Ji-young, compact and deadly. She took one look at Lethabo and said, "We have a lot of work to do." It was brutal. Every morning, Lethabo's body was pushed to its limits. She learned to punch, to kick, to use her smaller size as an advantage. Ji-young didn't go easy on her. Neither did Kwon Tae-young when he occasionally joined the sessions, moving with a lethal grace that made Lethabo realize exactly how dangerous he truly was. Again, he said, as Lethabo attempted to break his hold for the 5th time. I can't. Yes, you can. His voice was hard. Again. She tried, failed. He didn't release her. What would you do if I was Choi Jisoo right now? If I was hurting you? Something snapped in Lethabo. She twisted, drove her elbow back into his ribs, and when he loosened his grip in surprise, she spun and brought her knee up hard. Kwon Tae-young blocked it, but barely. Better, he said, a hint of approval in his voice. Use your anger. Make it a weapon. Over the following weeks, Lethabo felt herself changing. Her body grew stronger, leaner. She walked differently, held herself differently. The fear that had lived in her bones since Choi Jisoo started to fade, replaced by something sharper, fiercer. And her relationship with Kwon Tae-young grew more complicated. They'd have breakfast together, trading barbs and occasional laughter. He'd ask her opinion on business matters, genuinely listening to her answers. At night, they'd sometimes sit on the terrace overlooking Seoul, drinking wine and talking about everything and nothing. But there were also moments of tension when his hand would linger on her waist at an event, when she'd catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't read, when the air between them would charge with something dangerous and electric. One night, after a particularly grueling training session, Lethabo found Kwon Tae-young in his office, staring at his computer screen with an expression she'd never seen before. "Worry, what's wrong?" she asked from the doorway. He looked up, surprised. "Nothing. Business." Liar. She walked in, closed the door. "Tell me." For a moment, she thought he wouldn't. Then he leaned back in his chair, exhausted. "There's a war brewing between my organization and a rival group. People are going to die. Can you stop it? I can win it." He met her eyes. "That's different." Lethabo didn't know what made her do it, but she moved behind him and placed her hands on his shoulders. He tensed, then slowly relaxed as she worked at the knots in his muscles. "You're not as terrible as you pretend to be," she said quietly. "Don't be so sure." But his voice lacked its usual edge. They stayed like that for a long time, neither speaking, until finally Kwon Tae-young reached up and caught one of her hands. He didn't say anything, didn't need to. The moment said everything. 2 months into their arrangement, Kwon Tae-young had to leave Seoul for business. "A week in Tokyo," he said. Lethabo pretended she didn't care, but she found herself missing him. Missing their morning sparring sessions, missing their evening conversations, missing the strange, complicated thing that had grown between them. She was painting, something she'd started doing to pass the time, when her phone rang, a Korean number she didn't recognize. "Hello." The voice made her blood freeze. "Choi Jisoo, did you really think you could hide from me forever?" Her hand shook. "How did you get this number?" "I have friends everywhere, baby." His voice was syrup and poison. "I know where you are. I know who you're with. Kwon Tae-young might be powerful, but he's not untouchable." "Stay away from me." "Or what?" Choi Jisoo laughed. "You'll tell your husband, the one you signed away your life to. He doesn't love you, Lethabo. You're just a toy to him, a shiny new thing. When he's bored, he'll throw you away. And I'll be waiting." Lethabo hung up, her whole body shaking. She immediately called Kwon Tae-young. "What's wrong?" His voice was sharp, alert. She told him about the call. There was a long silence. When Kwon Tae-young spoke again, his voice was deadly calm. "Pack a bag. My driver will take you to a safe house." "No." The word surprised her as much as it did him. "I'm not running anymore." "You trained me to fight, so I'm fighting. Whatever this is, we face it together." Another pause. "Then I'll be home tomorrow. Don't leave the penthouse. And Lethabo, if he calls again, tell me immediately." Kwon Tae-young returned the next day, earlier than planned. Lethabo heard the door open and found him in the living room, looking exhausted and dangerous. Without thinking, she walked straight to him and hugged him. He went still. Then his arms came around her, tight and possessive. "You're safe," he murmured into her hair. "I promise he won't touch you." "I know." And she did. For the first time since this insane arrangement began, she truly believed it. Kwon Tae-young pulled back slightly, looking down at her. His hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. The air between them shifted, charged with something new, something dangerous. He leaned down, and Lethabo's heart hammered in her chest. Then his phone rang. The moment shattered. Kwon Tae-young stepped back, answering, his expression darkened as he listened. "When?" A pause. "I'll handle it." He hung up and looked at Lethabo. "Choi Jisoo is making moves, spreading rumors, trying to damage my reputation. He thinks if he weakens me, he can get to you. What are you going to do?" "What I always do." Kwon Tae-young's voice was cold. "Win." Over the following days, Lethabo watched Kwon Tae-young orchestrate a counterattack with surgical precision. Business deals fell through for Choi Jisoo. His wealthy friends suddenly stopped returning calls. His reputation crumbled, but he kept calling Lethabo, each message more desperate and angry than the last. "He's going to do something stupid," Kwon Tae-young said one evening. "Desperate men always do." He was right. 2 weeks later, at a charity auction, one of those glittering events where Seoul's elite pretended to care about the poor, Choi Jisoo made his move. Lethabo saw him first, pushing through the crowd. She grabbed Kwon Tae-young's arm. "He's here." Kwon Tae-young turned, placing himself between Lethabo and Choi Jisoo. His entire demeanor changed from polished businessman to something far more dangerous. "Lethabo." Choi Jisoo's voice carried across the room. People turned to stare. "I need to talk to you." "There's nothing to say," Lethabo said, proud that her voice didn't shake. "I'm not talking to you." Choi Jisoo looked at Kwon Tae-young. "How much?" Kwon Tae-young raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me? How much for her? Name your price. She belongs to me." The room went silent. Lethabo felt Kwon Tae-young go very, very still beside her. When he spoke, his voice was soft, deadly. "My wife is not for sale." "Wife?" Choi Jisoo laughed a manic sound. "She's not your wife. She's mine. I paid for her, brought her to Seoul, gave her everything, and she ran away like a thief in the night." "You mean you beat her," Kwon Tae-young said clearly, loudly, making sure everyone heard. "You abused her, terrorized her, and when she finally found the courage to leave, you stalked her." "That's a lie." "Is it?" Kwon Tae-young pulled out his phone, tapped something, and suddenly Choi Jisoo's voice filled the room. Recordings of his threatening calls to Lethabo, each one more violent than the last. This is you, isn't it? Threatening my wife, promising to hurt her? Choi Jisu's face went white, then red. You bastard, He lunged at Kwon Taeyang. It was over in seconds. Kwon Taeyang caught Choi Jisu's wrist, twisted, and drove him to his knees. The crack of bone was audible. Choi Jisu screamed. You'll what? Kwon Taeyang's voice was conversational, but his eyes were merciless. Threaten her again, try to hurt her, touch what's mine. He leaned down. Listen carefully. If you ever come near my wife again, if you ever speak her name, if you even think about her, I will destroy you. Not your reputation, not your business. You. I will erase you from existence. Do you understand? Choi Jisu whimpered. Kwon Taeyang released him, and security, Kwon Taeyang's security, dragged Choi Jisu out. The room remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, conversation resumed. But everyone looked at Kwon Taeyang differently now, with more fear, more respect. Kwon Taeyang took Lethabo's hand. Let's go home. In the car, Lethabo couldn't stop shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline, from relief, from something she couldn't name. Kwon Taeyang held her hand the entire drive, his thumb stroking her palm in a gesture that was surprisingly tender. Back at the penthouse, Lethabo poured herself a large drink. Thank you, she said quietly. You don't need to thank me. Kwon Taeyang loosened his tie. He won't bother you again. How can you be sure? Because I own him now. His business, his assets, everything. By tomorrow, Choi Jisu will have nothing. By next week, he'll be gone from Seoul entirely. I made sure of it. Lethabo stared at him. You destroyed him in one night. I told you, I protect what's mine. He moved closer. And you're mine, Lethabo, whether you like it or not. I'm starting to think I might like it. The words were out before she could stop them. Kwon Taeyang's eyes darkened. He closed the distance between them, his hand cupping her face. Say that again. But she didn't get to finish. Kwon Taeyang kissed her, hard and desperate and nothing like she expected. She kissed him back, pouring 3 months of tension and fear and reluctant affection into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kwon Taeyang rested his forehead against hers. I wasn't supposed to care about you, he said roughly. This was supposed to be business. What is it now? Everything. He kissed her again, softer this time. You're everything. They didn't leave the penthouse for 3 days. Those 3 days were a blur of tangled sheets, whispered confessions, and finally admitting what had been building between them. Kwon Taeyang was surprisingly gentle considering his reputation, but there was still an edge of possession, of claiming, that made Lethabo's heart race. On the 4th day, reality intruded. Lethabo woke up feeling nauseous. At first, she blamed it on too much wine and too little sleep, but when it continued for 3 more days, she couldn't ignore it anymore. The pregnancy test she bought from a convenience store disguised in a baseball cap and sunglasses was positive. So was the 2nd one, and the 3rd. She stared at the little plastic stick like it was a bomb. She was pregnant with Kwon Taeyang's child, the feared underworld king of Seoul, her husband, who she'd started actually falling for. This was insane. Kwon Taeyang found her sitting on the bathroom floor an hour later, surrounded by positive pregnancy tests. He took one look at the scene and went very still. Lethabo? She looked up at him. I'm pregnant. For a long moment, he didn't react. Then, slowly, he sank down beside her. How long have you known? About an hour. And how do you feel about it? That was the question, wasn't it? How did she feel? 3 months ago, she would have been terrified. But now, looking at Kwon Taeyang's face, seeing something vulnerable and almost hopeful in his eyes, she realized the truth. I think, she said slowly, I think I'm okay with it. Just okay? I'm scared, she admitted, but I think this could be good, if you want it. Do you want it? Kwon Taeyang pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. Yes, he said roughly. God, yes, I want it. I want you. I want this family. Lethabo felt something crack open in her chest. When did this become real? When did we stop pretending? I stopped pretending the night you asked who I really was. Kwon Tae-young pulled back to look at her. You were the first person in years to see me as human instead of a monster. How could I not fall for you? Even though I've been a nightmare? Especially because of that. He smiled and it transformed his face. You're fierce and stubborn, and you don't let me get away with anything. You're perfect. I'm really not. You're perfect for me. He kissed her forehead. And you're going to be an amazing mother. Over the following weeks, Kwon Tae-young transformed from feared crime lord to anxious, expectant father. He read pregnancy books, he made Lethabo eat balanced meals, he banned her from training sessions, and treated her like she was made of glass. I'm pregnant, not dying, Lethabo complained, as he tried to stop her from carrying her own purse. You're carrying my child. That makes you precious cargo. He grinned at her expression. Get used to it. You're going to be spoiled rotten for the next 6 months. 7. I'm only 2 months along. 7 months of spoiling. Even better. Despite the hovering, Lethabo had never been happier. The nightmares about Choi Jisoo faded. She felt safe. Genuinely safe. For the first time in years, she and Kwon Tae-young would sit on the terrace in the evenings, his hand on her still flat stomach, talking about names and nurseries and the future. What if they inherit your stubbornness? Kwon Tae-young asked on night. What if they inherit your control issues? Lethabo shot back. Then we're both in trouble. He kissed her temple, but I wouldn't have it any other way. The penthouse slowly transformed. One of the spare rooms became a nursery. Pale yellow walls, soft lighting, and more baby furniture than any one child could possibly need. Kwon Tae-young insisted on the best of everything. This is excessive, Lethabo said, looking at the third luxury crib option. Nothing is excessive for our child. Kwon Tae-young was absolutely serious. They deserve everything. They're going to be so spoiled. Good. He pulled her close. They'll never know fear, never know hunger, never know what it's like to be unwanted. I'll make sure of it. Lethabo heard what he wasn't saying, that he'd known all those things, that behind the expensive suits and ruthless reputation was a boy who'd probably suffered in ways she couldn't imagine. She kissed him softly. You're going to be an amazing father. I hope so. His voice was quiet. I don't exactly have a good example to follow. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. But pregnancy wasn't all romantic moments and nursery shopping. Lethabo's morning sickness was brutal. She couldn't keep anything down for weeks. Kwon Tae-young would sit with her on the bathroom floor, holding her hair, bringing her water, looking helpless and worried. I'm calling the doctor, he said, after a particularly bad episode. It's normal. I don't care. I'm calling the doctor. The doctor assured them everything was fine, just severe morning sickness. Kwon Tae-young wasn't convinced. He started working from home more, hovering, making sure Lethabo ate small meals throughout the day. You're going to drive me crazy, she told him. Probably. He didn't sound apologetic. At 4 months, when Lethabo's stomach finally started showing, Kwon Tae-young became even more protective. He banned her from wearing heels, insisted she rest constantly, watched her like she might break. It's normal. I don't care. I'm calling the doctor. The doctor assured them everything was fine, just severe morning sickness. Kwon Tae-young wasn't convinced. He started working from home more, hovering, making sure Lethabo ate small meals throughout the day. You're going to drive me crazy, she told him. Probably. He didn't sound apologetic. At 4 months, when Lethabo's stomach finally started showing, Kwon Tae-young became even more protective. He banned her from wearing heels, insisted she rest constantly, watched her like she might break. I'm going to training, Lethabo announced one morning. Absolutely not. Ji-young says light exercise is fine. Good, even. No. Kwon Tae-young's jaw was set. It's too dangerous. I'm not fragile. Lethabo stood up, wincing slightly at the pull in her back. I need to stay strong for the baby, for me. They stared at each other. locked in a battle of wills. Finally, Kwon Tae-young sighed. Fine, but only stretching, no sparring, no weights, and Ji-young doesn't leave your side. Deal. He pulled her close, his hand splaying across her stomach. I just want you both safe. We are safe, Lethabo covered his hand with hers, because of you. At 5 months, they found out they were having a girl. Kwon Tae-young cried. Actually cried. Lethabo had never seen him show that much emotion. A daughter? He whispered, staring at the ultrasound image. We're having a daughter. Are you okay? I'm terrified. He looked at Lethabo, eyes wet. How do I protect her from everything? From the world I live in? From people like me? You protect her by being her father, by loving her, by showing her what a good man looks like. Lethabo took his hand. You're not the monster you think you are, Tae-yang. You're the man who saved me, who protected me, who loved me even when I was impossible. That's the man our daughter will know. Kwon Tae-young pulled her into his arms. I don't deserve you. Probably not, Lethabo smiled against his chest, but you're stuck with me anyway. The pregnancy transformed their relationship in unexpected ways. Kwon Tae-young became softer, more open. He'd talk about his childhood, brief, painful glimpses of a boy raised in violence who learned early that power was the only currency that mattered. Lethabo would listen, holding his hand, understanding him in ways she never had before. And she'd talk about Johannesburg, about her family, her mother who died when she was young, the loneliness that had driven her to Seoul in the first place, the vulnerability that had made her an easy target for Choi Jisoo. I was so desperate to belong somewhere, she admitted one night. To someone. That's why I stayed with him so long. I thought being wanted, even by someone who hurt me, was better than being alone. You're not alone anymore, Kwon Tae-young's voice was fierce. You have me. You have our daughter. You have a family, Lethabo, a real one. At 6 months, Lethabo felt like a whale. Her back ached constantly, her feet were swollen, she couldn't sleep comfortably, and she was constantly, irrationally emotional. I'm hideous, she announced one morning, looking at herself in the mirror. Kwon Tae-young, who was getting dressed for a meeting, stopped and stared at her. What? Look at me, I'm huge. My face is puffy, I have stretch marks everywhere. He walked over, turning her to face him. You're carrying our daughter. You're creating life. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You're just saying that. I never just say anything. He placed his hand on her stomach, where their daughter was currently doing what felt like gymnastics. You're beautiful, Lethabo. Strong and fierce and beautiful. Don't let pregnancy hormones tell you otherwise. She burst into tears. Kwon Tae-young looked panicked. What did I say? Nothing. You're perfect, and I love you, and I'm crying because I'm happy, and I hate these hormones. He laughed and pulled her close, careful of her stomach. I love you too, even when you're crying for no reason. There's a reason, she hiccuped against his chest. I just can't remember what it is. The nursery was finally finished at 7 months. Pale yellow walls with hand-painted clouds, a crib that looked like something from a fairy tale, bookshelves already filled with children's books in Korean, English, and isiZulu, Kwon Tae-young's insistence that their daughter know all parts of her heritage. A rocking chair by the window where Lethabo would sit, imagining holding her baby girl, singing her to sleep. It's perfect, she said, fighting more tears. You're crying again? Shut up. Kwon Tae-young pulled her into his arms from behind, his hands covering hers on her stomach. She's going to be loved so much, he murmured, so incredibly loved. She already is. At 8 months, Lethabo was on bed rest. Her blood pressure was slightly elevated, and the doctor wanted her to take it easy. Kwon Tae-young took this as permission to wait on her hand and foot. I can get my own water, Lethabo protested. You can, but you don't need to. He handed her a glass with lemon, the way she liked it. Let me take care of you. You've been taking care of me for 8 months. 9, technically, and I plan to keep doing it for the next 50 years minimum. He sat beside her on the bed. Get used to it, Mrs. Kwan. Lethabo smiled. I think I already am. One night, unable to sleep because their daughter was apparently training for the Olympics in her womb, Lethabo found Kwan Tae-young on the terrace, staring out at Seoul's glittering skyline. Can't sleep either? She asked. He pulled her close, careful of her stomach, thinking about how much my life has changed. Good changes, the best changes. He looked down at her. A year ago, I was alone. Powerful, yes. Wealthy, yes. But completely alone. I didn't let anyone close. Didn't trust anyone. Didn't believe in anything except power and control. And now I have everything I didn't know I needed. He placed his hand on her stomach. A wife who challenges me, a daughter on the way, a reason to be better than I was. You've always been better than you thought, Lethabo said softly. You make me want to be better. Kwan Tae-young kissed her forehead. You and this little one. You're my world, Lethabo. My entire world. No pressure on the baby, then. He laughed, a sound that came more easily now. She'll handle it. She's half you, after all. Stubborn and fierce and absolutely unstoppable. And half you, which means she'll be protective and intense and probably give us gray hair before she's 5. Probably. Kwan Tae-young grinned. I can't wait. At 38 weeks, during a routine checkup, the doctor smiled. Everything looks good. Baby could come any day now. Any day, Lethabo's voice pitched higher. Kwan Tae-young grabbed her hand. We're ready. Were they? Lethabo looked at this man who'd gone from stranger to captor to partner to the love of her life in less than a year. This man who saved her, challenged her, loved her. This man who was about to become a father. Yeah, she said, squeezing his hand. We're ready. 5 a.m. Lethabo woke to a sharp pain and a very wet bed. Tae-yang, she shook him awake. It's time. Kwan Tae-young, the feared underworld king of Seoul, the man who'd faced down politicians and rival gangs without flinching, went absolutely pale. Time, as in our daughter is coming now. He moved into action, grabbing the hospital bag they'd packed weeks ago, helping Lethabo dress, calling his driver. In the car, he held her hand so tight she thought her bones might break, but she didn't complain. He looked terrified. Hey, she said between contractions, we've got this. You've got this. His voice was strained. I'm just trying not to pass out. Don't you dare. I need you conscious for this. Labor was long and brutal. 14 hours of pain that Lethabo never wanted to experience again. Kwan Tae-young stayed by her side the entire time, letting her crush his hand during contractions, wiping her forehead, whispering encouragement, even though he looked like he might be sick. You're doing amazing, he kept saying. So strong, so brave. I'm going to kill you for doing this to me, Lethabo panted. Fair enough. When their daughter finally arrived, screaming her displeasure at being removed from her warm cocoon, the world stopped. The nurse placed her on Lethabo's chest, and Lethabo looked down at this tiny, perfect person, dark skin like hers, a shock of black hair, eyes squeezed shut, and felt her heart explode. Oh, she whispered. Oh, look at her. Kwan Tae-young was crying again, unashamed. He reached out with a shaking hand to touch their daughter's tiny fingers. She's perfect, absolutely perfect. She's beautiful, Lethabo agreed. The nurse eventually took the baby to clean her up and check her vitals. Kwan Tae-young sat beside Lethabo's bed, looking shell-shocked. We have a daughter. We do. We're parents. We are. I have no idea what I'm doing. Lethabo laughed, exhausted. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. When the nurse brought their daughter back, swaddled in a pink blanket, Kwan Tae-young stood to take her. He held her like she was made of glass, staring down at her with an expression of absolute wonder. Hi, he whispered. I'm your dad. And I promise you, you will never know fear. You will never doubt you're loved. You will have everything good in this world, and I will protect you from everything bad. That's my promise to you." The baby yawned, unimpressed. Lethabo smiled through tears. What should we name her? They debated names for months, but never settled on one. Now, looking at their daughter, Kwon Tae-young said, "Hope. Her name is Hope. Hope Kwon." Lethabo tested it. "I like it. Hope Lethabo Kwon. After her mother, the strongest woman I know. Hope Lethabo Kwon it is." The first weeks were chaos. Hope was a terrible sleeper, which meant her parents were terrible sleepers. Lethabo was healing from delivery. Kwon Tae-young was trying to balance fatherhood with running his empire. They were both exhausted, overwhelmed, and completely in love. 3 a.m. feeding Hope. Kwon Tae-young, who just finished changing a diaper, collapsed beside her. "Is it too late to return her?" "Absolutely." He grinned, exhausted. "Didn't think so." Despite the chaos, or maybe because of it, Lethabo had never been happier. Watching Kwon Tae-young with their daughter, singing to her in Korean, reading her stories, talking to her like she understood every word, made Lethabo fall in love with him all over again. "You're a natural," she told him. One evening, Kwon Tae-young looked up from where he was doing tummy time with Hope. "I'm terrified every second." "Welcome to parenthood." "She smiled at me yesterday. Actually smiled." "That was gas." "It was not gas. It was a smile. She loves me." Lethabo laughed. "Of course she loves you. You're her dad." Kwon Tae-young's expression softened. "I never thought I'd have this. A family. People I love more than power, more than money, more than anything." He looked at Lethabo. "Thank you." "For what?" "For running into my office that night, for signing those papers, for giving me a reason to be more than I was." He stood, still holding Hope, and kissed Lethabo softly. "For being my wife, my partner, the mother of my child, for everything." Lethabo touched his face. "You saved me first. I was drowning and you pulled me out, even if your methods were questionable." "Very questionable," he grinned. "But it worked out." It did. Lethabo looked at their daughter, already drowsing off in her father's arms. It really did. 6 months after Hope's birth, Lethabo stood on the terrace of their penthouse, looking out at Seoul. The city that had been the site of so much pain now felt like home. Kwon Tae-young came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different everything is. A year and a half ago, I was running barefoot through the streets, terrified and broken. And now, look at me. I have a husband I love, a daughter I die for, a life I never imagined I could have." "You built this life," Kwon Tae-young said. "You fought for it. Every day you chose to be strong, to survive, to love. That's all you." "We built it," Lethabo corrected. "Together." "Together," he agreed. He turned her to face him. "I love you, Lethabo Kwon, my fierce, stubborn, beautiful wife, my beauty. And I love you, Kwon Tae-young, my dangerous, overprotective, surprisingly soft husband, my beast." He laughed. "Beauty and the Beast. That's us." "That's us," she agreed. From the nursery, Hope started crying. They both moved automatically, but Kwon Tae-young held up a hand. "I've got her. You stay here. Enjoy the view." Lethabo watched him go, then turned back to Seoul's glittering skyline. She thought about the girl she'd been, scared, abused, lost. She thought about the woman she'd become, strong, loved, found. She thought about her daughter, sleeping in the next room, who would grow up knowing only love and safety. She thought about second chances and unexpected love, and how sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest futures. And she smiled, because this messy, complicated, beautiful life was hers. She'd fought for it, earned it, and she was never letting it go. Kwon Tae-young returned, Hope in his arms. She just wanted to say goodnight to her mom. Lethabo took their daughter, kissing her soft forehead. Hope's eyes were already drooping again. "Good night, baby girl. Sweet dreams." She handed Hope back to Kwon Tae-young, who carried her back to the nursery. When he returned, he pulled Lethabo close. I have everything, he said quietly. Everything I never knew I needed. And it's all because you stumbled into my office one night. Best mistake I ever made. Best decision I ever made was making you sign those papers. Worst decision, Lethabo corrected, but it worked out. It did. Kwante Young kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. And it's only going to get better. Lethabo believed him, because despite everything, the pain, the fear, the chaos, they'd found each other. They built something real, something lasting, something beautiful. And that was worth every moment of the journey. Abuse is about control, not love. No level of wealth, status, or charm can excuse violence or emotional manipulation. Isolation is the abuser's most powerful tool. But you are not alone. If a relationship feels unsafe, it is. Reach out to someone you trust, a friend, a cleaner, a colleague, a neighbor, or a family member. Use code words if you cannot speak freely. There are resources available to help you plan an exit safely. In South Korea, you can call the Women's Emergency Hotline, 1366. In South Africa, you can contact the National GBV Command Center, 0800 428 428. Your survival is your strength. You deserve safety, respect, and peace.